Hello everyone, welcome once again to this online chemistry class. So we are doing this chapter, that is chapter number 3, metals and non-metals, and in that we are doing chemical properties of metals. So in the previous classes we had learnt about the reaction of metals with water, reaction of metals with acids, reaction of metals with solutions of metal salts, right? And in that we learned few metals like your potassium, sodium are highly reactive. They cannot be kept exposed outside. They will react very fast when they come in contact with oxygen or water or acids. Based on the activity they show, these metals are placed in a decreasing order of their activity, and that table is what is called as your reactivity series. So reactivity series is a series which consists of a list of metals which are arranged in the decreasing order of their activity that they show. The metals that you see at the top are highly reactive, like your potassium, sodium, calcium, and then as you go down, their activity they show reduces, like your silver, gold. They are all least reactive because you are wearing ornaments made out of silver and gold and all. They are coming in contact with atmospheric gases, with water. Nothing happens to them. Okay, so this reactivity series which the order goes like this: potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium, zinc, lead, hydrogen, copper, mercury, silver, gold, platinum also you can include. So this shows the decreasing reactivity order of metals. This you have to be thorough with. Please learn this table carefully. And today we are going to talk about how do metals and non-metals react with each other. This is very, very important. We all know that the chemical properties of metals and non-metals are different. Why are they different? Because their electronic configuration is totally different. These metals and non-metals have the tendency to acquire a stable state. That means the electronic configuration of the nearest noble gas. This you have learnt in your 9th standard. This happens normally during the compound formation. When a compound is formed due to the reaction between, we are talking about metals and non-metals. Okay, so at that time both the elements that are taking part in the chemical reaction will try to acquire a stable state. Means what? They will try to have a complete outermost shell. Okay, so let's first have a look at the table showing the electronic configuration of noble gas. When you look at the noble gas like helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, when you look at their electronic configuration, you can see the valence shell. That means the last shell of these atoms of elements will have a complete shell. Helium, atomic number is 2. It will have only one shell, and first shell has a capacity to hold only 2 electrons. From second shell onwards, the maximum number of electrons it can hold is 8. When it has 8 electrons, we can call it as an octet or a complete shell, right? So when you look at other noble gases like your neon, argon, krypton, xenon, radon, they will have complete outermost shell. Okay, now when we look at the electronic configuration of few metals like sodium, magnesium, aluminium, potassium, calcium, you will find their outermost shell incomplete. Like sodium, atomic number is 11. Its electronic configuration is 281. Magnesium, atomic number is 12. Its electronic configuration is 282. So when they lose these electrons in their outermost shell, like 1 electron of sodium, 1 electron of magnesium, 3 electrons of aluminum, when they are lost, they'll acquire a stable state. When you look at the electronic configuration of non-metals like nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine, phosphorus, sulfur, chlorine, you will find that these elements or atoms of elements need certain number of electrons in order to complete its outermost shell or to become a stable one. Like nitrogen needs 3 electrons, oxygen needs 2 electrons, fluorine needs 1 electron, phosphorus needs 3 electrons. Okay, so when does this happen? This happens during a compound formation. When metals and non-metals react with each other, transfer of electrons take place. And the compounds formed due to transfer of electrons is what is called as ionic compounds. Okay, so that's what we will be learning in detail now about bond formation between atoms of metals and non-metals. See here. The bond which is formed by the virtue of transfer of electrons is called as ionic bond or electrovalent bond. Why is it called as ionic bond or electrovalent bond? I'll explain you now. Metals normally loses electrons and acquires positive charge. Non-metals gain electrons and they become negatively charged, and we call these non-metals as anions and metals as cations. The compounds that are formed due to transfer of electrons between a metal and non-metal are called as ionic compounds. I'll explain that in detail. So we are talking about ionic compounds. Okay. So before learning this, let's learn what are ions. Ions are nothing but charged particles. Okay. Ions are nothing but charged particles. These are mainly of two types, cation and anion. Cation means what? Positively charged. And anion, negatively charged. So your metals like sodium, potassium, magnesium, these are all coming under the category of cations. And anions, you can give all non-metals like chlorine, oxygen, all those things. They are negatively charged. So now, when the compounds are formed due to transfer of electrons between a metal and non-metal, we call it as an ionic compound. Or in other words, you can say that the compounds that are formed by the combination of positive and negative ions are called as ionic compounds. You can write it in two ways. Compounds that are formed due to transfer of electrons between metals and a non-metal can be called as ionic compounds, or the compounds that are formed by the combination of positive and negative ions are called as ionic compounds. Okay. Now, I would say this sodium chloride is a ionic compound. Why? What is the reason? Why should I tell this sodium chloride as ionic compound? Do you all accept that sodium chloride is a compound? Yes, it is a compound. This sodium chloride is formed by the combination of sodium and chlorine, right? Atomic number of sodium is 11, you all know that. So its electronic configuration is 281. The electrons in the last shell is what is called as your valence electron. So here sodium has got 1 electron. And chlorine electronic configuration is 287 because its atomic number is 17, it has got 7 electrons. Now this sodium will loses 1 electron to chlorine. So when it is losing 1 electron to chlorine, it will form a complete outermost shell and it will become positively charged. Chlorine gains 1 electron and it will become negatively charged. So this is becoming a stable now atom now, because it becomes, the outermost shell becomes complete, right? So now when the compound sodium chloride is formed due to the combination between sodium and chlorine, sodium is losing 1 electron to chlorine and becomes positive, and chlorine gains 1 electron from sodium and becomes negative. When you talk about sodium chloride as such, it has got no charge, but individually speaking, sodium is positively charged and chlorine is negatively charged. So when a metal and a non-metal combine with each other, there is a strong force of attraction between two opposite charges, what we call as electrostatic force of attraction. Strong force of attraction. Okay. In physics we call it as electrostatic force of attraction. In chemistry we call it as bond formation. They are developing a relationship, no? The sodium and chlorine. They are combining. They are forming a bond and taking a new form as sodium chloride. Okay, and the compound thus formed are said to be ionic compounds, and the bond formed between them is called as ionic bond, or it can be called as electrovalent bond. Ionic bond, electrovalent bond, both means the same. Okay, electrovalent bond. Understood? Now, see, I will show the transfer of electrons by using the dot structure. It's very important. So, see now. Dot structure of sodium chloride. See, when you are using dot structure, you said, no, sodium has got one electron, that you will show in the form of dot. It combines with chlorine, which has got 7 electrons in its outermost shell, which I am representing with the help of a cross. Now what happens? This sodium will lose one electron to chlorine, and thus it becomes positively charged, and chlorine becomes negatively charged by taking one electron from sodium. Right here, one electron it is taking from sodium and forming the compound sodium chloride. So, since the reaction is between a metal and a non-metal, the compound formed is called as ionic compound, and there is transfer of electrons. Sodium is transferring one electron to chlorine, and it takes a new shape and it takes a new form, which is called as sodium chloride, and a bond is formed. A relationship is created between the both metal sodium and non-metal chlorine. So that is the opposite charges are getting attracted towards each other. Chlorine is negatively charged and sodium is positively charged. It's trying to pull each other. They're trying to attract each other. In physics we call it as force of attraction. In chemistry we call it as bond formation. Since bond formation is happening due to transfer of electrons, we call it as ionic bond. There is one more called covalent bond, which you will learn when you are doing your carbon compounds lesson. Okay. Now let's do the equation form for the formation of sodium chloride. How it should be represented. See here, this sodium, as I told you, has electronic configuration 281. So this sodium, if it loses this one electron, it will become stable and it will become positively charged. Chlorine, electronic configuration 287, when it accepts one electron, it will become stable and it will become negatively charged. This is the equation form. Okay. Now let's now do the dot structure for magnesium chloride, MgCl2. See, for such compounds only dot structure is very helpful. See, magnesium, you all know, atomic number is 12, right? Electronic configuration is 282, and your chlorine, atomic number 17, electronic configuration is 287. Okay, so now dot structure for magnesium chloride we are doing now. So how will I write the dot form for magnesium? Magnesium has got 2 valence electron, which I will show with the help of 2 dots. Combines with chlorine, which has got 7 electrons in its outermost shell. Now from magnesium, this chlorine will accept 1 electron, or magnesium will transfer 1 electron to chlorine. Now there is one more electron left here of magnesium. So what will happen? Another chlorine atom with 7 electrons in its outermost shell will take this electron from magnesium and This magnesium will become positively charged by losing 2 electrons, and chlorine becomes negatively charged by accepting 2 electrons. Fine. So for these compounds, this dot structure is very helpful. You can write it in the equation form also, like how I did for sodium. Magnesium with electronic configuration 282 gives magnesium 28 plus 2 electrons. It will lose 2 electrons, no? It will transfer. And the chlorine, like what we did there, 2 chlorine atoms will take 1 electron each from magnesium. So it will gain 2 electrons. Cl plus 2E minus will come there. Okay, so like this, I'll show the dot structure for calcium oxide also. So we'll proceed now. Let's now do the dot structure for calcium oxide. You know the calcium has atomic number 20, electronic configuration will be 2882. So 2 valence electrons, and oxygen atomic number is 8, electronic configuration is 6, so number of valence electron is 6. So when you are representing the dot structure for the same, you will write calcium with 2 valence electrons combines with oxygen which has 6 valence electrons. Now this calcium will lose its 2 electrons to oxygen, and it will become Ca 2 plus, right, and this oxygen will be two minus. This is your compound formation, calcium oxide. Now I've shown the formation of sodium chloride molecule in the equation form as well as the dot structure for the same, which is given in your textbook, even equation form and the dot structure. So dot structure is the easy way of representing the ionic compound formation when there is we saw the example of magnesium chloride, 2 chlorine atoms are taking part. So in that case, dot structure is of great help to you. Now in the same way, I've shown the dot structure and formation of this magnesium chloride molecule. Okay, so please watch these things carefully and try to register them in your mind, and let's move on to the next part of this lesson. Now learn the properties of ionic compounds. First of all, let's talk about the physical nature of ionic compounds. Ionic compounds are generally found to be in solid state, and they are supposed to be little hard even. So why are they supposed to be in their solid state? We all learned these ionic compounds are formed, or they are made of 2 oppositely charged ions, a positive and a negative ion. When we were talking about sodium chloride also, it is made up of sodium and chlorine. Sodium is positively charged and chlorine is negatively charged. When 2 opposite charges are involved, the force of attraction between them will be very high, right? So this stronger force of attraction between them, and they are too close to each other, will make them acquire a solid form. At the same time, when you apply pressure, they can be broken down easily into pieces, and that is why they are say that they generally are found in their solid state, but at the same time they are brittle, because when you apply little pressure also, they can be broken down into pieces. Clear to you? Next property is about melting and boiling points of ionic compounds. Ionic compounds are supposed to have high melting and boiling point. What should be the reason for this? Just now we saw these ionic compounds are normally found in their solid state. Why? Because they have a strong force of attraction, because they are made up of 2 oppositely charged particles. Here, see, when the force of attraction between them is very high and the space between them is very less, you need a lot of energy to break the bond existing between them, or to vaporize them, right? That is why we say these ionic compounds are supposed to have high melting and boiling point, right? When we find two strong men fighting with each other by holding their hands, when you try to separate them, you need to apply a lot of force. For that you need to have greater energy. Same way here, these ionic compounds are generally made up of two oppositely charged particles which exert a stronger force of attraction on each other. In order to break this bond or this to weaken the force of attraction, you need to supply a high amount of energy. That is why they are supposed to have high melting and boiling point. So we say ionic compounds have high melting and boiling point because they need a considerable amount of energy to break the strong interionic attraction existing between them. Next property, solubility. Electrovalent compounds or ionic compounds are generally soluble in water, and they are not soluble or insoluble in organic solvents such as kerosene, petrol, alcohol and all. Why? What should be the reason? See, ionic compounds are generally said to be soluble in water but not in petrol, kerosene or alcohol. Reason for this is water itself is an ionic compound. It's a solvent. Petrol, kerosene is also a solvent, but water is having H plus ion and OH minus ion. It is also an ionic compound which is formed by an ionic bond existing between them. So since we say like-minded people will prefer having friends who are having thinking capacity like them, same here. Ionic compounds can also be dissolved in solvents like water, which is also an ionic compound, but not in petrol and kerosene because these are formed by covalent bonding. You need not worry about covalent bonding now, that's not there now in 10th. So you know what is ionic bond. So water is also a solvent which is formed by ionic bonding. It is also an ionic compound. So ionic compounds will get dissolved or will get soluble in ionic compounds, but not in petrol, kerosene or alcohol because they are formed by covalent bonding. That you will learn in your carbon atoms to some extent. Okay. Next, conduction of electricity. See, normally these ionic compounds, when they are existing in their solid form, they will not allow electric current to pass through them. Why? Force of attraction between them is very high. They are made up of two oppositely charged particles and they are existing in their solid state, means the particles are closely packed to each other. If you want electric current to, what is electric current? You have learnt in your physics, flow of electrons, right? So ions, electrons are also nothing but your ions. So there should be free ions to move through. But when you are talking about solids, there are no free ions. Ions are not free to move in out there. So ionic compounds cannot conduct electricity, whereas these ionic compounds can conduct electricity when they are in their aqueous form or in their molten state. Because molten state means when in their melted form, because in melted form the particles are loosely packed. So ions can freely move, electrons can freely move, so electric current can pass through it. When it is in the aqueous form also, you know, the particles are loosely packed, arranged, intermolecular force of attraction between them is very less, so ions can easily move around. So when you know these ionic compounds, I said they are easily soluble in water because water has a capacity to break the strong force of attraction existing between these ions. I told you the reason also, because water itself is an ionic bond. So when ionic compounds are existing in the form of their aqueous form or your molten form, when it is melted form, it can conduct electricity but not in solid state. Clear? And I want to give you few examples of ionic compounds like sodium chloride, your sodium fluoride, ammonium nitrate. Sodium chloride is used, no, it's a common salt, it's used in our day-to-day life. Your sodium fluoride is there in your toothpaste, and your ammonium nitrate is used in your fertilizers. So these are all soluble in water. Clear? For just for example, I'm telling you. So when you're talking about conduction of electricity, ionic compounds in solid state do not conduct electricity because movement of ions in the solid state is not possible due to their rigid structure. But ionic compounds conduct electricity in the molten state as well as in their aqueous form. This is possible since the electrostatic force of attraction between the oppositely charged ions are overcome due to the heat. When it is in the molten form, heat is supplied. Energy is supplied means what? Electrons are free to move there. Okay, with this we are coming to an end of today's session. At the same time, the lesson is over here. Rest of the topics are all not there from this lesson in your syllabus. So I have attached a worksheet. Please solve that. Meet you later. Till then, take care. Goodbye.